All right. Well, Vicky, I am so excited to welcome you onto the Rising Moms podcast today. I know this is going to be a great conversation. I have loved getting to know you over the last couple of years. I think it's been years at this point, or at least a year. I know that for sure. So I am super excited to have you on the podcast and be able to introduce you to all my podcast friends and listeners out there. So thanks for hopping on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So before we dive all on in, would you mind just kind of sharing a little bit about you, who you are? I know you live overseas, so that's always fun for people that are in different places around the world. So go ahead and share a little bit about you.
Okay, so I am from the UK, from Devon, down in the southwest of England. I'm currently living in the south of Spain, in the Costa del Sol near Malaga. Haven't seen anybody from home since January last year, but like everybody, been affected by restrictions.
Yeah.
So I'm over here with my partner, my fiance, and my little girl who's 3 in a couple of months. And I'm teaching English, which is why I came over here in the first place. Yeah,
Very cool. I know. It's crazy how this year has just changed and shifted so much. And yet at the same time, like I know we talked about it, and throughout this whole thing, it's been so fascinating to watch all the different moms within the Rising Moms Club being in different countries and different places around the world, and just seeing the variability of how things have looked, but yet also the similarities and how we're all kind of navigating through similar things at the same time. So it's been interesting to see that journey, especially this last year, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So take us back a little bit. How long have you been in the Rising Moms Club? I know it's been a little while. It's been since the very beginning, correct?
So it would have been when you did a great clutter clear out in January of last year.
Okay. So pretty close to the very beginning. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how that came about, I came to Spain, first of all, in 2015 to do a course to learn how to teach English. And then stayed, got a job here, and have kind of been moving between the two, between Spain and the UK. When I'm in Spain, renting flats, apartments, and when I'm in the UK, staying with my mum. So I was home with her for Christmas for that year, and with my daughter, who was around about 18 months at the time, kind of sorting through some of her clothes and saying that I wanted to put a bag of small stuff down into the garage. And my mum was kind of like, well, good luck, because it's full. And I'm afraid a lot of the boxes have got your name on, so you need to do some sorting out. I was like, yeah, okay, there is a lot of stuff that's there. And as if by magic, I don't know if Facebook listens to your conversations or what, but up popped the Great Clutter Clear Out. And I thought, yeah, I think I should maybe do this. So I joined that for the 5 days, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't take a lot of action at that time because it was January and very cold, and had an 18-month-old, but I was kind of taking on board a lot of the ideas, and then subsequently joined the Rising Moms Club.
Yeah.
With great intentions of sorting out those boxes, but obviously haven't been back to the country since. So they're still there.
You're like,
but I now know I can take them on.
Yeah, you are in a very special, unique situation, right? And the fact that like you haven't been able to declutter any of that kind of stuff because it's all back locked up in storage in a different country.
I get reminded by it every now and then.
I know. So aside from having those boxes and being a part, like I think a lot of times people think that decluttering is just those boxes, right? Like they think it's just the physical stuff. And something that I really like navigating and teaching is that it's really about decluttering anything in your life that doesn't match up to those core things that matter the most to you. And I think sometimes people don't even know what those things are, right? We just get so burdened down and so overlaid with just the daily hamster wheel of life that we forget who we are and what lights us up, what makes us feel good, and then pile all these other things into our calendar or our minds or any of those types of pieces. So obviously you have not decluttered your boxes this year. So what have you done? Like what was it? What are like maybe go back. Like what was it that you did, or what was life like before you jumped into Rising Moms Club? And I know, excuse me, your situation's a little bit unique because you're living in two different countries and navigating between two different places and all that. But what was life like for you? What were some of those feelings and things that you were having? And then what have you been doing? Like, what have you been decluttering over the time?
So I guess declutter wise, as you say, all the stuff, my kind of life baggage, like literal physical stuff, I haven't touched, but I have tried to, moving forward, make sure that I'm not accumulating things here, which I think is important, like not just buying things that you don't need. But aside from the physical stuff, I think it's my main change has been in my mindset, from conversations we've been having in Rising Moms Club. Like, I mean, there are inevitable cultural clashes in moving to another country.
Yeah.
And I think in the kind of attitude to planning is quite different in Spain, at least in my experience, than what it is in, well, for me. Like, I would like to plan, have things written down in my diary and know what's coming, whereas here it's a lot more, I think the nice way they put it is informal. And so I think kind of concentrating on my reactions to that, I've got a lot better at dealing with it than I was before. It used to drive me absolutely crazy. There are times that it still does. But I'm not now, you know, taking it all to heart and getting really frustrated by stuff. It's just like, that is just how it is here. And actually I had it explained to me really well once by an Irish priest who lives over here. And he said he does some like marriage counseling and things like that, and said what's really useful is to think of the different attitudes, splitting Northern Europe and Southern Europe. So the attitudes in Northern Europe tend to be more of like a straight line for getting things done, whereas Southern Europe is more of a circle or a zero. Like, stuff still gets done, but in a more roundabout way. So in Northern Europe, we're used to doing, you do this step, then you do that step, and on that day, that step, and then you'll get to here. And when that doesn't happen, we get frustrated.
Yeah.
Whereas here, it's much more like, it'll get done. Don't worry about it. Okay, maybe not on the day you thought, but like life goes on. Houses get built, projects get done. It's just stops that frustration coming between the two sides.
Yeah.
Because if you don't kind of recognize that there is that difference, you both get frustrated. I get frustrated about things not being sequential and in order, and the other person's like, will you get off my back? It's going to happen. Just relax.
Yeah. Well, and I think that that's so unique that you brought up, is that culturally things are so different, right? Like the way we look at achieving, or the way we look at getting things done, or like that, like getting the goals done or the task done is so unique and different culturally, like based on where we're at. And so I love that you brought that in, and that in having that perspective, right, of having those two different cultures and seeing it from a little bit like this, being in a different space and a different environment, challenged you to kind of see it from a different perspective, right, and to do it a little bit differently. So how, no, go ahead.
So I used to get so frustrated, like at the early days of my relationship with my partner who is Spanish. It caused so much friction when like he'd say, oh yeah, we're gonna have lunch on Sunday. So I would be like putting friends off, saying, no, I can't meet you in the afternoon because we're gonna have lunch and we're gonna do this, and I would like spend the morning getting ready and all this stuff. And then I wouldn't get a call, and I'd be calling him and he wouldn't answer, and I'd be like, what's going on? And I wouldn't hear from him like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I'd be like, what happened to lunch? Oh yeah, I'm coming over, I'll see you at 9. And I'd be like, are you kidding me? I've just turned down all these other plans. You're like, oh yeah, but my friend who I haven't seen for a year called and I went to meet him. And like, and what about our plans? Yeah. Oh, we can go for lunch anytime. Like, well, yeah, we can, but you know, plan. Nice to cancel it. But.
Yeah, no, and I think that that's like it, I mean, even just bringing up that, like that, I mean, there's plenty of people who could resonate with that feeling of being frustrated in that situation, being like, well, what about me? What happened to my plans and that situation with me? And so it does bring up so much. So how do you think that like both that how have you grown in that area over the last year?
I think it's just the kind of knowing that issue exists and trying to accept it rather than change the other person.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to revolutionize the whole culture. It's like, okay, I'm living in this culture. It's me that needs to adapt. I'm not going to change everyone around to my way of thinking. So I need to be more flexible and think, okay, I'm going to suggest that I meet this friend for coffee at that time, but I'm not going to pin everything on it. And Like, okay, they might not show up and not tell me the last minute, or I might have something that comes up and then I don't need to worry that they're going to be really frustrated with me.
Yes.
It just
Yeah.
happens.
And that flexibility, like you talked about, like it goes both ways, right? So you recognize that other people are in that same situation that probably understand. And I think that that even just brings up this idea of like so many of us place judgment on ourselves, and like in that situation being like, oh, if I don't show up on time, or if I don't show up for that person, they're going to think I'm a horrible friend and I'm no good, and how did I not do it, yada yada yada. But yet a lot of times those are just the stories we're interpreting and making up ourselves, rather than necessarily what, like, and you even see that in that culture where you're at, is that that's just the way of things. Like something might come up, it's no big deal, it's not putting that label on you. But oftentimes I find myself like putting those labels on myself, right?
Like being a flake.
Yes. Like I'm a flake. I'm not a good friend. I didn't show up, like all of that. But yet when you take those labels off and say like, my friend gets it, like they understand, like something came up. Or like you and I, even when we scheduled this call initially, like babies get sick, things happen, like, my face might flare up and have an allergic reaction. Like we get it, life happens, right? There's that flexibility. And when we can let go of that judgment and let go of that feeling of like what somebody else might be thinking when they maybe aren't even thinking it in the first place, it just lets go of so much and opens us up to so much more opportunity. So how have you seen, because I know community is a big part of that, right? Like when we're around people, like we even talked about like the culture we're in shapes it. How have you seen community shape the way that you look at the things around you in your life?
I'm a little bit confused by that question.
That's okay.
Sorry, that might be
that's okay. So like when you think about like the community that you've been a part of, is in terms of like Rising Moms Club online and being in that community, how has that shaped kind of some of that growth and that change for you?
Okay, yeah. So Rising Moms Club is obviously hugely supportive and not judgmental, which is fantastic. So you don't have to worry about that not showing up thing. Is something I've really felt more comfortable with as time's gone on. Like I think at the beginning I was very quiet and didn't say anything in the group, just kind of looked at what everyone else was doing and then thought, well, I haven't really got anything to contribute, I'll just absorb. And then felt like, oh, I really should be doing more. So then I was like posting loads of stuff, and then went away again and started feeling guilty about it. And then thought, why are you feeling guilty? Not nobody cares, but nobody's going to be thinking, what's she doing? Why isn't she posting? What's going on? Well, like, it's just, it is what it is. We post what we want to post. We read what we want to read. And it's all just supportive and helpful and not about comparing, which I think is a big thing. And it's getting better. It is still there a little bit. I have to confess, actually, in the days running up to doing this, I did have a look at other podcasts. I started listening and then got intimidated and thought, stop listening to them because you're thinking that you shouldn't be doing this and you're not going to be good enough. So stop it.
Yeah.
Renee's asked you to do it, so just do it.
but even then, and like even just listening to that, like the bravery, like I'll be honest, that comparison, it was like super potent and like vivid for me in the last couple of days. Like I think that that idea that comparison is gone forever is kind of an illusion. I don't know that letting go of comparison altogether, it's the recognizing that the comparison's there, and just what you did, being like, no, stop it. Like, this is where you're at. This is where you move forward. This is, like you've been asked to do this. Like you have a voice, you have a piece, you can show up in this place, and just like moving forward with that. But because like I said, I'll be honest, like comparison, like the last couple of days, I'm like, I feel like such an imposter. I don't know what I'm doing. There's so many other people that are doing things better than I am. Like, who am I? Like, yada, yada, yada. Like that voice comes back over and over. And so I think it truly is all just about recognizing when that voice shows up and saying like, X-nay, we're done, like move along. And just standing in that space that you're at, rather than that expectation that comparison's never going to come. Because I think it's natural, right? Like to see other people doing things and immediately start to question what the validity of where you're at, but it's not necessarily the Like it's not the goal. The goal is not to get to this place where we never compare. The goal is to be able to catch us when that comparison is bringing us down versus helping kind of push us forward. Because I think there is benefit to comparison, right? Like when we see other people achieving things and think, gosh, I'm not in that place, but I could be, like, and then that helps propel us forward versus that comparison that you and I are talking about that kind of like spirals us out, right?
Yeah. It hit last night. I was like, oh, am I actually going to do this? Like, I haven't had this amazing, huge transformation, like inspiring story. I'm just me kind of carrying on, and then like just stop it.
Yes. So, but even then, like, and I think that that's kind of something too, is like a lot of times people think like, oh, I have to be in this totally down and out, awful, no good, low bottom place in order to make progress in my life, right? But that's not true either. Like there's this element of like, oh, well, I have to go from horrible to great in order for it to be a transformation, or I have to be at a certain place or desire a certain goal, or I have to completely transform my house, right? In order for it to be seen as good enough, when in reality, good enough is what's good enough for you. And that progress, even if it's a small step or feels small, is perfect just for you, right?
Yeah, I guess probably because we're used to seeing those TV shows with hoarders and things and obsessive compulsive cleaners where they take this place that you just look at and think, oh my gosh, how can anyone even live in that? And then you see this beautiful house afterwards and think, wow, that's what I need to do. But
yeah.
it doesn't have to be so extreme.
Yeah. The growth isn't in the extremes. The growth, like, and that's great. Like when you watch those hoarders shows and they come in and do it, but then you kind of question, does the person have the skills to keep it that way? Like you've gotten it to this place, but the growth and the progress comes in those small steps daily, like those small little changes. And even if it doesn't look like it on the outside, that is where the transformation and the goal, like the growth comes from, is that being in the work and like failing it and trying it again and doing it over and over and over again, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what have been some of those, like now that we come back to it, what have been some of those greatest changes or those greatest tools that you have kind of put in your tool belt over the last couple of years or year?
So I guess things like from the trainings that you've done, like a 2-minute rule is a great one, and it's just so easy because I definitely catch myself being lazy and just putting stuff down where I am and then think, no, come on, because I know it's going to be me who has to pick it up later, so just put it away.
Yeah.
What's the point of putting it down on the sofa and then having to pick it up later? Just hang it up now. And the other one that I really liked is the only having 3 things on your to-do list.
Mm-hmm.
Because I am definitely one for like saying, right, it's my day off, I'm going to write down all these things I have to do, and I get this list of like 30 things long and then only tick off 5 and feel terrible.
Yeah.
So, okay, just put the 3 things that you are definitely going to do, and all the others can be on another list that maybe you'll get to, and then if you do, you'll feel extra good about doing them, rather than it's that kind of flip from the negative to the positive. That's been really good. And actually something that's I've really been happy about seeing with my daughter was like only having 1 toy out at a time, because when Christmas came, obviously family from home sent her things, and it was all things with lots of little bits. Before now she's tended to have big things that make noises or toys, like cuddly toys, whereas now it's like the big Lego bricks, and a tea set and a shopping set, and it's all these things.
Yes.
And she opened them all on Christmas Day during a video chat because everybody wanted to see it. And I was just looking at the floor going, ooh, so many bits. What are we going to do with this? Like, am I just going to sweep them into a bucket at the end of every day? So we kind of said from the beginning, okay, you can play with the shopping things. And then she's like, oh, I want the bricks. And say, okay, put the shopping things away and then you can get the bricks.
Mm-hmm.
And it took maybe a week or 2 before she actually started doing it on her own, which was amazing.
Yes.
I see her starting to put the bricks back in the bucket, and I go, oh, have you finished? And she goes, yes, Anna wants to play with the tea things now. I'm like, oh, fantastic.
Isn't that nice?
And kept going because it's just been the norm.
Yeah.
Never fought against it because it's been like it from the beginning, and that's so good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's amazing. Like even just to hear you, because yesterday I threatened my kids that I was going to put a lock on the hallway closet because they like went in there and got so much stuff out and then didn't put any of it away. And like things were broken and missing pieces and whatever. And that idea of like, you only need one thing at a time. Or maybe like a combined little group, like maybe you build the blocks with the T's and like you do something together, but then eventually those two sets go back away, right? Like, so there's a little bit more creativity and potential there. But that idea of the toy rotation makes such a huge difference. And that overwhelm that kids can feel when they've got all of it out, they don't know where to start. And, you know, yesterday we had an issue with pinworms in our house. And so I had to wash like every ounce of laundry and every sheet, every bed, every comforter, like everything. And so in the process of doing all of that, I was like, gosh, you guys have trash under your bed and you have this. And like that element of like blow up was fun in my house yesterday. But it just brought me back to that idea of like you said, when you can instill those things from the very get-go, it makes it so much easier. So when you have those toy rotations in system, in play, in going, it makes it so much easier than, you know, when they're 10 years old and you're like, okay, now we're going to try this. So, you know, implementing from the very beginning is so helpful.
Yeah. Although the toy rotation, we haven't been quite so successful with that. Like when all the new stuff came, we tried putting all the old things in a bag and putting them in a wardrobe, but she found them.
Yeah. But even just doing what you're doing is kind of in essence, kind of like a little bit of a rotation, right? Like it's not necessarily like a true sense of like a toy rotation where things are boxed up and put away and then you bring out new stuff and whatnot. But it's kind of in that same idea that you're rotating toys rather than, hey, let's dump the entire toy basket in the living room and play with it all at once. And then it's just overwhelming to pick up and put away and play with and all of it all at the same time.
Yeah. So that is one thing actually that we're being very intentional with clutter, with the toys.
Yeah.
Like my partner from the very off was like, she is not going to have a ton of toys. Like we need to tell people, get her clothes because she's growing. Like, you can get her a toy, but don't go crazy.
Yeah.
She already has this, and this. And we can suggest things if you want to get something, but we don't want to be overwhelmed because, I mean, really, the place where we live, it is not big. Like we don't have, you know, a basement or a shed or a garage or an attic. It's just 2 bedrooms and a living room, and that's it. So
yeah.
Everything she has is on view. There is a bike leaning against the wall. Her pushchair is by the TV. Like you can see it all. There's nowhere to hide it. So that's quite good for controlling how much stuff you have.
Yeah. And that element, like, I think sometimes people feel like we need more things in order to be happy. But I know you've implemented and done like lots of different little activities and fun things together that you don't require, like stuff isn't required in order to have fun and to enjoy time together. And, you know, all of those like little memories. I think even this year, especially with COVID and whatnot, like you've made little memories and little adventures and things like that have changed and kind of set new traditions and new habits and new things for your family. So I think it's just valuable to kind of take that step back and even like identify where maybe we're placing value in things rather than really embracing kind of the emotions behind that connection.
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. Like with Christmas was a really big one, I think, for noticing that, because COVID's making you think a lot more about things that are important, things that you're missing, that you notice with time, and that connection with family is a big thing I've noticed. And Christmas is a time when everyone thinks about sending cards and stuff. And I had lots of people getting in touch saying, what's your address now? Where do I need to send it? Like, are you in Spain or the UK? What's going on? And I just said to them, don't send me a card. Like, I appreciate the thought, but you're just spending money on a bit of paper and a stamp, and I don't need to see a little Christmas picture on my mantelpiece. Let's have a video call instead, and we can actually properly connect with more than just a little message saying, oh, thinking about you. I mean, yeah, it's the intention behind the card that's the good bit, much more than the actual bit of paper. So yeah, that's definitely something we'll probably continue with.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't miss cards, to be honest. They're nice, but
I know this year I definitely got less cards than in the past. So I think that people are kind of looking at those other ways to connect for sure.
Yeah.
So as we get close to the end here, is there any last little bit you feel like you want to leave people with?
I guess one thing that I really like about Rising Moms Club, aside with the community and not comparing and all the support and things, is also that you make it quite clear that it's taking from it what works for you. Like, you give us a ton of ideas and different things that we can try, but it's about trying them out and seeing if they work for you. And if they do, fantastic. And if they don't, that's okay. That doesn't mean that you've failed the program or that you're not good enough. It's just every situation is different and you find what works. I mean, specific example for me, I don't know, we did a call recently, we were talking about planning time, and I don't know if you picked up on the fact that I stayed quite quiet when we were talking about planning methods. Like, so are you digital, are you paper, are you a note on the fridge? And I was just like, I'm nothing, because you can't plan here. But that doesn't mean that that's, a problem, that I'm failing because I haven't got a planner or using a diary or Google Calendar or whatever. It's just, it doesn't really fit for me. So, like, I get that it works brilliantly for a lot of people, and maybe it will for me one day, but right now it doesn't really. And I'm not going to beat myself up about not having a beautiful planner on the wall or Google Calendar in 5 colors and stuff. It's just use what works for you.
Exactly. Yep. And I think that that's so wonderful. Like, even, I don't know if you picked up on it, but that ability to identify that, like, instead of that feeling of like guilt of, oh, I should be planning, or, oh, I should be using a planner, or I should be doing it this way because this is how all these other people are doing it. Like, for you to be able to sit back and be like, you know what, that works great for you. Bravo. This is what is working for me in my culture, in my circumstances, in my season, in my family, like in where I'm at right now, this is what's working for me. And to own that and identify that, I think that's ultimately the big goal, right? Is to, like, when you know who you are and what works for you, then it's easier to let go of all that other comparison and judgment, because like, this is what's working for me. And so I think that's a huge win, and that's a huge thing to celebrate for you.
Oh, thank you. Yay, no planning for me. Even like with love sequels, I put those in my Google Calendar, and then I don't know what happens. I obviously haven't set it up right because I don't use it, and I still miss stuff. So I think, why am I wasting time doing that?
It happens.
I'll get an email. I'll see it somewhere. It's fine.
It happens, like, there's still times where I'm like, oh crap, we forgot Girl Scouts. Like, hurry, or whatever it might be.
Yeah, like, probably like you say about the seasons, because my little girl, she's only 2, so she hasn't got, different things that I need to be taking to. She just goes to nursery and that's it. And I don't have to ferry her to different things here, there, and everywhere. There will be a time when I will need to take notice of these things. But for now, there's no dentist appointments anyway. There's no doctors.
It's just different. Yeah.
Usual life stuff isn't happening. It's just kind of going with the flow at the moment.
Yep. And I think that that's beautiful, just to recognize that that's the season you're in, fully embrace it, fully be there, and then move along when things change. So, Vicky, thank you so much for hopping on. This was amazing and wonderful, and just a great, fun little chat that we had together.
Thank you.
Yeah.